You are Locked On Trojans Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, welcome in, Trojan fans, to the Locked On Trojans Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On Trojans podcast feed. I am Pete Fox, covering sports in LA for both ESPN LA and NBC Sports Radio, dating back to 2007, back when USC was a Pac-12 team. Now they are a Big Ten team, and they have adopted that identity full force. This was a Big Ten battle at its finest, and it didn't go the way of the Trojans. Very unfortunate, but a hell of a game. And they acquitted themselves very, very well in this one, in spite of the 27-24 loss. Today's episode of the Locked On Trojans Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel, now through September 22nd, which is tomorrow. So you got one more day to get on this. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, the final here at the Big House in Ann Arbor, 27-24. They gave the Wolverines a run for their money. It feels to me like the Trojans did everything possible to win this game except one thing, and that was stop the run, specifically Kalel Mullings. And I have to give my friend Ryan Abraham at USCfootball.com credit for surmising this game and the keys to victory before it ever started. He does that on his website and on his Instagram every week, usually on Friday. So if you're a Trojan fan, you should check out USCfootball.com with Ryan Abraham. But 3 keys to victory for him were: the offensive line needed to have fewer than 3 false start type of penalties. Best I could tell, they had 2, one in the first, and then a fairly crucial one in the third. The second one was the big one. Keep the Michigan run game under 200 yards. They did not do that. 290. But here's the thing. Here's what got the Trojans back into this game was they had 199 on the ground, did Michigan, in the first half. And in the second half, they got back into the game by keeping Michigan from running the ball. They had very few yards in that third quarter. And had there been a tackle from, what's that guy's name? Number 19. I wrote it down here. I don't want to single him out, but John is his name. If he'd have tackled Kalel Mullings there, the Trojans do win this game. The fact that he was unable to wrap him up, he had him around the waist. It was seemingly a textbook tackle. It wasn't like he was trying to do something fancy and Mullings just, broke the tackle and shed him. He had him wrapped up, even as the dead legs thing going, where he was trying to drag him down, and it didn't work. Mullings is a former linebacker and just kind of went, "Get off me," and rumbled down to the red zone, and they had it 4th and goal. I mean, they had it right in front of them. It came down to one play for the Trojans, a 4th and goal stop, and they win this game. Couldn't make it happen, but they gave it their all. They gave it everything that they had to get back into this game in the third quarter. And, in the first half, it was all Michigan. This is definitely one of those games where you could put the headline up, a tale of 2 halves. It was all Michigan, and Michigan was too much on defense for the Trojans offense. They couldn't figure out anything running the ball, throwing the ball. Finally, by the third quarter, they started running play action, and it started working for them. It started to free up their offense a little bit and get to the Wolverines defense a little bit. All in all, though, yeah, it was the tale of 2 halves, and the Trojans just had it didn't seem like they had any chance. They were definitely a road team, struggling to struggling to deal with the Wolverine faithful there of 110,000 plus. So you have to give them credit that when they came out of the locker room at halftime, that they were a different team, right? They held Michigan on third down. I don't even know the exact number. Let me look it up here, because it was in the first half, midway through the second quarter, they were 1 for 6 were the Wolverines on third down. So the Trojans defense showed up, bowed their neck in tight spots. And then the Trojan offense under Miller Moss, who had a very, very good game, 28 of 51, 3 touchdowns, 283 yards. And the last 2 big touchdowns for the Trojans were clutch plays on third down. So that was huge for them as well. In the total yards department, USC outgained them 379 to 322. Where is that first down stat? Man, I'll have to dig around here a little bit as I talk. And that's one of the cool things about the Locked On podcast here. We don't have producers here with us. You just have to kind of go with the flow. And, I'll just vamp here for a few seconds while I dig around the stat box trying to find the third down conversions for you. Third down efficiency for USC, 7 of 19. Michigan was 4 of 15 on third down. Now, that's a good job by the Trojan defense there. 4 of 15. Again, the Trojans were 7 of 19 on third down. So Michigan did their job as well. Both of these teams really showed up on defense. One of the things that you would give credit to Michigan on is fourth down. They had a fourth down efficiency of 3 for 3. Saucy James says the O-line was completely outmatched. They were one-dimensional, challenged SC directly, and got beat in the face. I wouldn't call a 27-24 loss beat in the face. In the first half, that's a fair point, Saucy, but I don't agree with you at all in the second half. The Trojans stood up. They could only do so much. That Mullings is a hell of a runner. Again, 230, 240, something like that. I don't agree that they were overmatched. You would definitely grade them higher in this game for sure. Michigan won the battle of the trenches with their offensive line against Trojans' defensive line for sure. But the Trojans acquitted themselves very well. Okay, you're going to hang in there with the O-line was completely outmatched. I don't agree. But hey, you're free to your opinion, and I'm sure you know way more about football than I do, Saucy. But yeah, if a O-line is completely outmatched, this game is 27-3, right? Not 27-24. And if it wasn't for that big run from Mullings in the fourth quarter, then the Trojans win this game. And that had nothing to do, well, maybe not nothing, a little bit to do with the defensive line. But ultimately, the tackle missed by John was the key to this game. If he wraps him up and pulls, there was 2 tackles. There was another guy in on it as well. And ironically, one of the things about this game that I was really impressed with was the tackling, like the open field tackling. Something, if you watch Trojan football last year at all, you know that they could not do. They were not efficient at tackling. Jalen Smith had a hell of a game tackling Wolverines in the open field. They did a really, really good job throughout the game, making big tackles in the open field. So I feel like USC, yes, they weren't perfect. Obviously, they lost the game, but this game is one that you look at and go, hey, this is a different football team. We're in a different conference, playing a different style of football to a certain extent. I think I'm probably most frustrated about the fact that Michigan was so one-dimensional that there was no mystery at all. None. Orji could not throw the ball. 7 of 12 for 32 yards. And yet and still, you had a tough time stopping them. Ultimately, you were unable to stop them. You knew exactly who was going to touch the ball. You knew exactly what they were going to do when he touched the ball. They pointed out during the fourth quarter that an average in the last 20 years of running the ball between the tackles is below 70%. Outside of the tackles is above 70%. Today, the Wolverines ran the ball inside of the tackles 90% of the time. So there was no mystery, right? And they didn't need to worry about that dude on the sideline stealing signs. Have you guys watched that, by the way? That's a heck of a documentary. I think it's on Netflix about the dude that worked for Michigan. I forget his name. Was supposedly stealing signs and all of that. But anyway, they didn't need that guy today. The Trojans, if they had a guy like that, didn't need him, right? It didn't matter. It's like, hey, we're running the ball. Like they could have just broadcast it. There was very little mystery from the Wolverines. Smash and grab, cram it down your throat. The fact that the Trojans were able to minimize in the third quarter and not get completely blown out in this game was a credit to their defensive line. So sorry, Saucy, we can disagree on this one. I think the Trojans come out of this one a bigger, better team, even in spite of a 27-24 loss. I'm Pete Fox. This is the Locked On Trojans postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. The place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On Trojans podcast feed, where you can always find the daily podcast. It's there as usual. Mark will take care of you there Monday through Friday. He's your first listen. And then after the game, you come in here and I will be your second listen. And we appreciate you allowing us to be your source for your team every day. Trojans fall to 2-1, while Michigan is now 3-1. Probably move up in the rankings. These two teams could honestly probably trade rankings, 11 and 18 maybe. I feel like SC's probably not going to fall that much, maybe 3 or 4 spots down to 14 or 15, because they didn't get blown out. They didn't get embarrassed. They came and battled and nearly won the game. So we'll take the first break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what happened in the first half from a positive standpoint from the Trojans. Not a lot going on there, but there was a few things. We'll talk about that next. Today's episode of the Locked On Trojans postcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive and strong. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, like superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, like brake kits. I don't even know what a supercharger is. I know it makes your car go faster and sound cool, but I do know what brakes are, and I know that you need those. And I've bought them on eBay Motors plenty of times because they are a bargain. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home that huge win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, Trojans fall here. A goal line stand in the final seconds of the game. 4th down, the Michigan Wolverines punch it in. But in the first quarter, the Trojans, really started off well. Like I said, Jalen Smith and Akili Arnold making big time open field tackles. USC didn't turn the ball over. They were pretty clean. And I thought that Miller Moss came out looking fairly calm. He didn't really have a ton of opportunity, but he kept so many plays alive. Tell me if I'm wrong here, because I'm sure I am, right? Because you guys all know more than I do. Miller Moss isn't good. You guys are crazy. Going raw with Huck. Weirdest names. Like the Dodgers postcast guys, generally they have their name. Miller Moss isn't good enough athlete to go against a good pass rush. Are you out of your mind? Were you not watching this game? How many times did Miller Moss get out of the rush? That Stewart guy, Josiah Stewart, was up in his business the whole game. And Miller Moss kept plays alive time after time after time. Going raw with Huck? 100% not true. Miller Moss isn't good enough? Oh, my God. You football guys, and the fact that you think you know everything. Miller Moss, I don't want to tell you he's a Heisman Trophy winner, but if it wasn't for Miller Moss today, they would have gotten stoned. They would have gotten beat up. Miller Moss got out of so many tough situations where the defense was all up in his business. And yeah, look, the lines, yes, the Michigan lines, both offensive, defensive, are better than the Trojans. But that's not to say the Trojans lines are bad. Like if this was last year, Michigan beats the Trojans by 30, right? This year, tight ball game. The Lions acquitted themselves. They played very tough and hung in there throughout against Michigan. And Miller Moss kept so many plays alive, scrambling out of the pocket, checking down, trying to find a guy, trying to make things happen. And on the 3 touchdowns, made very, very accurate passes. The pick 6, yes, saucy. I'll agree with you here. Hey, look at that. Look how easy things turn around, saucy James. Now we agree on something. The pick 6 was ugly, right? But it was also a fantastic play by the Michigan defense. Here's what's great about that. Here's what came from that. The Trojans rebound. They bounced right back. Coming off of that pick 6, Marks had a huge run, 65 yards, which was followed by the fumble, which turned into a touchdown to Jay Fair. That made it 2017. So the Trojans went down 2010 after the pick 6, missed the extra point because of a blocked kick with 11 dudes on, or 10 guys on the field. So they were one fewer than they were allowed to have on the field and still blocked the extra point. Ultimately, it wasn't a factor, but they bounced right back. They had resiliency coming off of that play. The pick 6 turned right into a huge run from Mark, 65 yards. And then they got down to the 2-yard line, and then they got backed up because of that bad false start, which cost them 5 at that point. And then they got backed up a little bit more. And then they called the fumble on Miller Moss, where it really, I mean, that was what a hairline call that was. That could have gone either way. Was the hand moving forward? Was the hand empty when it was moving forward? They decided ultimately play on the field stands, or call on the field that his hand was empty. It was a fumble. And then a great play by Marks to strip the lineman who recovered the fumble. So that's why they call it a fumble. Trojans got the ball back, and right away, Miller Moss, boom, touchdown. So yeah, Miller Moss to me is fantastic. Very, very, very impressed with this dude. Really, really good quarterback. Yeah, his numbers were not great today, 28 of 51, but that Michigan defense is for real. Again, the thing about this game that is probably frustrating is that all Michigan had was running the ball. That was it. Here's our playbook. One play, run the ball, whether it's Orgy or Mullings or Donovan Edwards. 290 yards in total. Mullings had 159 and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. Donovan Edwards, 74 yards. But Woody Marks, 100 yards. Another really, really good game from Marks. 13 carries, no touchdowns. Quentin Joyner, 3 of 23, and Miller Moss lost 27 yards running the ball. It's because he was scrambling for his life. But I don't agree that he's not good enough to quarterback this team. He's got a good arm. He's a good passer, maybe not super efficient, as the numbers would indicate today, 28 of 51. It's barely over 50%. You'd like it to be closer to, 75%, 80% in that neighborhood. So ultimately, yeah, I got no problems, no qualms, no worries, no issues with Miller Moss. I also I feel really good about the way the Trojan defense dealt with the Michigan offense. When they were just running the ball, they stoned them on third down a bunch of times. Again, 4 of 15 on third down, like against a team that is only running the ball. That's a damn good performance right there. So, and they have a very, very good defense. So the fact that the Trojans were able to, keep this game tight, grab a 24-20 lead with 14 in the third, that's a tip of the cap right there. The fourth quarter was not quite exactly what you're looking for. The defensive pressure from Michigan was absolutely huge. Again, they had that off third quarter where the Trojans got back into it. Played some really, really good football, scoring 2 touchdowns. But the fourth quarter pressure from the Wolverines was really, really good. And the USC Trojans did a pretty good job early in the quarter of stopping the run. There was a fumble at the 8:19 mark. USC recovers. Gentry got after it. That guy played a heck of a game as well. So, again, 3rd and 16, a touchdown pass to JaKobi Lane for 24 yards to give the Trojans the lead. Third down, he was clutch. That's like the Dodgers with their 2-out offense, best in baseball. They go out and they make things happen with 2 outs and 2 strikes. It's kind of what the Trojans did today with third down. They go out and score touchdowns with third down, and they weren't like 3rd and 1, 3rd and 16. And the other one was a little bit more friendly, but nonetheless, third down. So we can agree to disagree on whether or not Miller Moss is a good quarterback. I would agree that he is a good quarterback. I don't know that he's going to be in the Heisman contention as being the best football quarterback in the nation, but had a heck of a game today, battled his ass off. So I don't know what more you can ask from that dude, really. Like, what do you want? You want him to run for 100 and throw for 303 touchdowns? Yeah, I mean, I guess we all would, but that's not who he is. And that's the Michigan defense would not allow that today. So again, the fact that the Trojans grabbed the lead and came back from being down 14-3, they could have rolled up and gone away at halftime. And we'd be sitting here talking about a blowout. Well, what do you expect? It's Big Ten. The Trojans aren't ready for it. And blah, blah, blah. The D'Anton Lynn defense is for real. And Miller Moss, for real. Look, the fact that he spread the ball out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different dudes, including Woody Marks with 5 receptions. We'll get into the receiving numbers after the break. Trojans fall 27-24, losing at the Big House to the Michigan Wolverines, who were ranked 18 and are now 3-1. Trojans were 11, probably drop about 4 or 5 spots, I'd imagine there. Their first conference game in the Big Ten comes up empty, unfortunately. I'm Pete Fox. This is the Locked On Trojans postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On Trojans podcast feed. Today's episode of the Locked On Trojans postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we got something a little different for you now through tomorrow, September 22nd. You got to get in on this deal. The 3-week free trial. All FanDuel customers, you bet $5 and you get a 3-week free trial of the NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And you just have to get in by tomorrow. It doesn't stop. The 3 weeks can start tomorrow. And you can enjoy the Sunday Ticket for free for 3 weeks. Then with a YouTube base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So check them out. You got all today and all day tomorrow. 22nd of September is when this comes to an end. So visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook. Trojans fall 27-24 at the Big House in Ann Arbor. By the way, if you've never been to Ann Arbor, cool city, really, really cool city. And the Big House is fantastic. I didn't go to a game there, but I was in Ann Arbor. I had a friend that lived there for about 5 or 6 years. This is when I was living in the Chicagoland area. So it wasn't a far drive over there, 4 or 5 hours. And it's just a cool little college town. I mean, I see why people really, really love their time when they go to Michigan and live in Ann Arbor for 4 or 5 years. It's a cool little town, all about the Wolverines. There's not much else going on there, but it's just a fun, pretty little town. And the Big House is spectacular. We went and somehow got in. I don't even know how. We got in and no game going on. Just walked down on the field, got to walk around, and it was just really, really cool to be down on the field and look up at 110,000 seats. It is magnificent. So if you're ever in the neighborhood, like you end up in Detroit for whatever reason, make the drive over to Ann Arbor. It is fantastic. Here are the Trojan receiving numbers. Zachariah Branch had a heck of a game. 6 receptions, 98 yards. Surprisingly, didn't get into the end zone because Miller Moss was finding other dudes that were open. JaKobi Lane, 4 catches, 50 yards, 1 touchdown. Jay Fair, 3 catches, 42 yards, 1 touchdown. Woody Marks had 5 catches for 40 yards, no touchdowns. Kyron Hudson got back into things. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was like, where's Kyron Hudson? Get him back out there. Well, decent game today. I wouldn't call it great. 3 catches for 31 yards. Had an opportunity late there in the 4th for what would have been another highlight reel spectacular catch, but couldn't come down because he had 2 Wolverines hanging on him and not just 1. Deuce Robinson had a touchdown, part of 2 catches on the day for 19 yards, and Quentin Joyner 2 for 6. Lake McCree looks like he could be done. That was tough. He got hit with his knee extended, so just kind of clotheslined on his left knee, which is his good knee, just coming off his second ACL. Having been through ACL surgery myself, and the recovery that's involved, the fact that that dude did that last year in the Holiday Bowl, to the best of my knowledge, and he's playing this year, that's unbelievable. That'd be like if Shohei pitched in the postseason 1 year to the day after, or 1 year and a month after Tommy John surgery. So the fact that that dude was crying visibly leads me to believe that they told him something's torn in there again, which means he has to go through ACL or MCL or PCL or something like that again. Hopefully not. Hopefully maybe it's some meniscus stuff going on, and maybe he's just upset that he was out of the game. But when you've had an ACL deal and you've had it twice and knocks you out of a game, and you're crying right after, that leads you to believe that it wasn't good. More from Saucy. Saucy and I are having a day today. D-line is solid for SC. Greatly improved. Yes, on the field all game. O-line is okay, but not the elite enough for the best teams. It's another fair point, Saucy. You're coming back around. I like you more and more every time. Those are completely good points. Craig is here to just bust on the refs. Missed horse collar on a key play. I don't know that was a missed horse collar. The referee in the booth, he said it was. I thought it looked more like just like he got him on the shoulder pad and pulled him down. I didn't see the hand get inside of the jersey there. So I'm going to agree to disagree with you on that one, Craig. I don't know. And it was, it wasn't super key. It was big. It would have been helpful for sure. Anytime you can get 15 yards. Yeah. That's helpful. 6 people. BC's upset with the amount of comments. 6 people in chat, 4 commenters. Who are the silent ones? Can't be silent around BC. Get in there. Get in there. What does Jay King have to say? For a Lincoln Riley defense, that was commendable. Most of the time they are trash. Well, yes, but that's a D'Anton Lynn defense. And this is the thing that Trojan fans should be excited about. The fact that they hung in there and battled a team that is defensively better than them, right? And was just getting after them. And the fact that they just ran the ball all day and the Trojans were able to slow it down at times, did a very good job at times. When they ran for 200 in the first half, you thought it could be a 400 or 350-yard game. The fact that they held them to 290 with that big third quarter was huge, Sacking the quarterback, fumble, recovery, and then answering with the touchdown. There's a lot to feel good about here. Open field tackling was good. They ran the ball good. They spread the ball out on offense. So, what do you come away from this game feeling they need to improve on? Stopping the run, I guess. Again, let me refer back to my friend Ryan Abraham from USCFootball.com's 3 keys to victory. Limit the offensive line penalties. They did that. To the best of my knowledge, there were 2 false start penalties. They got to keep the Michigan run game down. They did not do that. So had they done that, had they held them to around 200, 225, they would have won this game, and they had to win the turnover battle. So I don't know how they turned out with regard to that. Let's see here. Fumbles, turnovers, 2 apiece. So they didn't lose the turnover battle. So that's good. The biggest factor of this game that you go, all right, got to work on stopping the run. But, again, Michigan is a one-dimensional team. I'm far more frustrated. I feel good if I'm a Michigan Wolverine fan right now that we're not 2-2, right? And they beat a good team. They beat a team ranked higher than them. They were an underdog coming into this game, which was really, really surprising to me. They were 5.5-point underdog. That's crazy. I'm all about USC, and I thought they could win this game, but there's no way I'm giving up 5.5. No chance. So yeah, I would have been all over Michigan plus 5.5 in that one. But the fact that they come into this game and all they could do, this Orji guy's a new quarterback. He's their new quarterback because the other guy wasn't getting the job done. So I guess they're just going to be a running team, or are they going to have a 2 quarterback system? I don't know. I look at this team and I go, yeah, that's not going to work against everybody. This is a Trojan defense that is kind of rebuilding, finding their way under a new defensive coordinator, and they are head and shoulders better than they were last year. If you give them a D- last year, you give them an A- this year so far, in spite of losing. So yes, this defense is on the come. And when Michigan runs into a team with a better defense, yeah, they're going to have a tough time because all they do is run the ball. I don't quite understand why you don't stack the box a little bit more. He didn't make any key passes. To me, you got to go big, right? Load up the box. So the other thing that was pointed out during the broadcast that I found really, really interesting, it's kind of my final point here as we wrap up the Locked On Trojans postcast, is that, look, I never played football other than, on Thanksgiving and Christmas at the park with flags around my waist. So I've covered football a lot. I know the game. But what goes on the offensive line when you are a exclusively running team like the Michigan Wolverines are was really fascinating. They were pointing it out like it's not just, block the guy in front of you. They were pulling guards, and they had a very complicated offensive scheme going in spite of the fact that they were just running the ball. But that is not going to work against a much better defensive team. And yes, there are better defensive teams out there than the Trojans. But the fact that the Trojans hung in there on the road in front of 110,000 against a team with a defense like that is a silver linings, morale boosting loss. Let's put it that way. They come away from this one feeling pretty damn good about themselves, I would think. I don't think you're kicking yourself going, yeah, we got to get better. No, I feel like the Trojans are on their way to being at worst, 2-loss team. At worst. They got Wisconsin and Minnesota coming up. Wisconsin is next week at the Coliseum, then on the road against Minnesota. I think those are 2 wins. It gets real again against Penn State on the 12th of October. So I'm happy with the way this turned out. I feel really good about this Trojan team. And I do not think they are a paper tiger that won those first 2 games just because they were playing inferior opponents. And LSU's a good team. They're battling UCLA today, but ultimately, they're still a good team. It wasn't like a paper fake, pushover win there for the Trojans to get off to a 1-0 start. Last week or 2 weeks ago against Utah State, not much going on there, but they come away from this one feeling good about themselves, I think. And I'm going to agree with Gilbert, and he'll be the final comment of the day. Very proud of my team. We had some big miscues, but we will come back. Lincoln's going to be better on play calling. Yes. I come away from this one feeling like, proud of what they did. Plenty of positives, a few negatives. I don't know that I would put it on play calling. I figure that a few miscues. The miscues were the missed tackles on 2 big runs from Mullings. That's what this game boils down to. You stop Mullings on those 2 big runs, you win the game. So they're going to have to work on wrapping up. That's a fundamental issue. Going to have to work on wrapping up tackles for sure and being a little better against the run, and they'll be just fine. They fall in this one. Their record falls to 2-1 after a 27-24 loss at the Big House in Ann Arbor. I'm Pete Fox. Thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Trojans postcast. I'll be doing Chargers tomorrow as they're in Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. That's a 10 a.m. Pacific start. Question mark about Herbert. So be sure to join me after the game right here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. But today, we thank you for joining us. We thank you for participating in the chat. Again, the Trojans fall to the Wolverines 27-24. This is the Locked On Trojans postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. Have a good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.